Chapter 3. Desicrus. Desicrus, prince of all western Judea, trembled with constrained rage. Ah! His voice shook the large dark cave filled with hundreds of his demonic forces. The massive demon lord sat on a garish throne of onyx, encrusted with several misshapen skulls, homage to those who had resisted him. This news was not good. He simmered for a few seconds as he thought of a way to inform the Prince of Darkness about this information, but nothing came to him. Then, when all problem-solving had been used up without an answer, his anger-fueled tremors reached a zenith of intensity, and he stood. Desicrus strode towards the demonic congregation before him, which consisted of the majority of his Ashdodian forces. He had only recently been forced to return to this lesser city after Satan gave Joppa to Geraboth. As he drew near them, his breath came out of his nostrils with sparks of flame and sulfur. He thrust his massive fist into the crowd of demonic spirits, pushing dozens of them onto the floor of his main sanctuary. Large chunks of marble, limestone, and dried-out acacia wood lined the floor of an abandoned temple, the remnants of what had been an ornate house of worship to the Philistine god Dagon, his predecessor. The former sanctuary was now a dank, cavernous space hidden beneath the city centre of Ashdod. Incompetence! Centuries of instruction at my feet, and still none of you can secure a fallen angel from the grasp of a single angel, Desicrus roared. I had the opportunity to win favour with our master, to achieve new glory among the elite demons of hell, but my 4 best assassins are in the pits, and I am left with the likes of you. Desicrus clasped a large glowing emblem hanging from a bronze rope draped around his thick, muscled neck. The blood sigil of Babel, a special amulet Satan gave to the ruling class of demons whenever they ascended to the rank of principality. They were the same, star-shaped as any other demonic amulet, only these were twice the size and enhanced with the power to dominate every demon under their rule. Desicrus looked at his blood sigil with its reddish-green hue, and marveled at how quickly he could subdue his minions when the amulet's light became active. He asked, "Where are the imps who first reported the presence of the fallen angel?" Murmurs peppered the throng of demons, most of the voices tinged with fear. Finally, a meek voice responded, "They are assigned to Pontius Pilate's caravan, which is about 4 days out from Ashdod." Desicrus inhaled several gulps of sulphuric smoke to summon patience from his vengeful heart. "You do not need to tell me who they are assigned to. I am a prince of hell." He squeezed the fingers on both of his hands. "I value initiative and thoughtfulness from my slaves, yet none of you have shown either quality." The owner of the meek voice stepped out from the throng of cursed spirits and spoke with a tone of reassurance. "I will lead a large host of demons back to where we lost the 4 assassins." After a moment of silence, Desicrus barked, "Take 50 of your pathetic companions with you, and if you can find the scent of a fallen angel, follow it until you have captured him. Kill the one who guards him too." With a tenor of terror falling over the entire group, the one who had spoken up turned to the others and began to call out names. Once he counted out the 50 who would go with him, he flapped dark wings and flew out of the chamber, followed closely by his company of 50 demons. Desicrus scanned the remaining demons until he saw a face he had a small amount of trust in. "I can no longer wait for Pilates' procession to leisurely make its way to us. Go and get the 2 demons who torment Pontius Pilate." The large demon jumped into the air and, after several flaps of his wings, flew away from the Lord of Ashdod. While we are waiting for them to return, the rest of you can prepare a special welcome for our Lord and Master. He comes to see the former governor of Jerusalem on his way to parts unknown. The prince demon hissed. "We must give him a send-off worthy of the killer of God and bestow our best for the Prince of Darkness." Several minutes later, a thick, green plume of sulphuric smoke filled the decrepit chamber. The demon Desicrus sent to fetch the harassers arrived with those whom he was sent to retrieve. Desicrus felt himself leer with unrequited bloodlust. Unhand me, you pigs. Satan has ordered us to remain with Pilate, Squiff growled. If you had paid attention to Satan's recent announcement, you would be aware of his intentions for the governor. Heresy and I are to remain with Pilate until he lands in Gaul. Desicrus took a giant step towards the two newcomers, sending shivers up and down Squiff's body. He spoke in a pointed growl. Do you think me a fool? I know of your assignment, but my need for information is far greater than the few hours you will miss sniffing the air from the Roman's mouth. The demon prince had the form of a man, a perfect specimen likened to the great sculptures of history. His face resembled a viscous, hairless canine with two horizontal tear-shaped eyes aglow with fiery red shooting out from them. A large, imposing set of teeth dripped with unrequited blood hunger sprouted from a broad, leering mouth. Adorned in a breastplate, shin guards, and gauntlets made of blood-infused armor, Desicrus, the Prince of Ashdod, wrapped one of his iron claws around Squiff's neck. Then, with his other formidable hand, choked Heresy. Satan is not here to protect you. Heresy spoke through his constrained neck. You speak wisdom, my lord. Squiff meant no disrespect. It's just rare for small, insignificant spirits like us to get orders directly from our master. We don't want to fail him. The Principality of Western Judea curled his lips into a sneer. You grovel well for a worthless imp. Desicrus lifted his gaze to look over the entire assembly. The rest of you are dismissed to your assigned duties. The large crowd evaporated into green puffs of putrid smoke, leaving Desicrus with Squiff and Heresy. Squiff's mind began to roll in on itself like the black waves of a winter tide. The demon lord dropped them onto to ground. He turned away from them. What can you tell me about the body you found yesterday on the beach near Joppa? Through chattering teeth, Heresy spoke. Pilate's entourage was one day out of Joppa. They were forced to stop near the ocean. Suddenly, a bright light formed in the sky and fell to earth, very near to where the governor's contingent had stopped to make camp. Squiff interjected. Yes, just like the last time we observed a fallen one plummet to earth, there was a bright projectile falling at a rapid speed. Then fiery light spread out over the sky until the conflagration dissipated as if it were sucked back into a hole. We could see a very small, flickering splash down into the ocean. The demon prince turned to face them again. The brief message you transmitted to me suggested you encountered the body. Tell me about it. Heresy took his turn again. It seemed to be devoid of life. We attempted to pull it onto shore to better examine it, but we did not have the strength. Were there any markings? Desicrus asked. We did not have time to examine the entire body, but it did have the celestial aura, Squiff said. We heard the governor entourage getting ready to depart, so we had to leave. That is when we sent the message to you. You did well to send the message. I was able to send my advanced warriors to retrieve the body. Desicrus' words should have brought Squiff relief, but something in the demon lord's tone intensified the small demon's fear. Heresy, who did not seem to pick up on Desicrus' tone, responded, This is good. The master will be pleased with you and surely reward you. He would be pleased if my soldiers had secured the fallen one. His voice caused tremors that shook the cracked foundation of the old building, causing fissures and cracks to stretch across the ground. None of this reflects on you. Go back to Pilate and resume your duties. Squiff left without a backward glance, feeling relief for somehow avoiding any further conflict with the Prince of Ashdod and its surrounding cities. Once he dismissed the puny spirits from his sanctuary, the Prince of Ashdod found himself seething and alone. The latest report from Rome told of Satan's intentions to come to Judea, first to grant Pilate a proper send-off and to inspect the entire land of Judea. These inspections were invasive to Desicrus. Could not the Prince of Darkness be engaged in something more meaningful than finding fault with the principalities of the wretched outposts of Judea? As his mind became mired in fatalistic thoughts, the scent of humans filled his nostrils. He skimmed the ruins of the ancient temple until he saw a shadow darken the sunlight from a small opening in the roof. Look what I found! A child's voice echoed throughout Desicrus's subterranean dwelling. The youthful voice stirred his most savage tendencies, the need to corrupt and destroy. With a powerful thrust of his leathery wings, the Prince of Western Judea moved to the opening with stealth. The opening had once been an ornate marble entrance to the Temple of Dagon, but seismic activity and neglect had turned it into a small, soil-smeared opening, with chunks of marble jutting out like a set of malformed teeth. Desicrus peered out of the uneven opening and saw the face of a youth no older than 10 winters. The lad's face would be considered ruddy and handsome by human standards, yet something in the boy's manner spoke to Desicrus with an ancient cry from the earth's blood-soaked soil. "Miriam, Jonah, come here." The youth's voice echoed in the chamber again. The boy had shoulder-length black hair with a reckless look in his eyes. Desicrus noted the boy's appearance for future reference. He would be fertile ground for temptation in the years to come. A girl of similar stature moved in behind the boy. "Joel, you can't go in there. Mama says it's cursed." "Oh, come on. Surely this empty hole has no curse," Joel quipped. "It's dark in there." Jonah, the smallest of the 3 children, stated, "We don't have torches to light our way." "Both of you are cowards," Joel snorted. Against the protests of the other children, Joel crawled through the opening and walked past the invisible demonic prince. First, Desicrus barred his fangs at the audacious child. His lust for feeding on human fear came to the fore. But something in the boy's cocksure manner impressed him. He may have use for this child other than feeding. The youth stopped a few yards in, groping in the faintly lit cavern. Inspired to see how far the young boy would go into his domicile, Desicrus used his power to give the cave an unnatural glow, making it easier for the boy to see. "Come in here. You must see this." The feeble voice of the younger male came back to him. "What did you find?" "This looks like an old temple to some fish god. I bet we can find gold or silver in here." A full minute passed before the chubby boy of 8 or 9 years stumbled through the debris until he stood near Joel. Jonah spoke. "This looks like a big mess, Joel. Let's get out of here." Desicrus could see Joel's eyes flare up with pride. "A mess? You need to grow up, Jonah. All these broken statues are from an old temple. Temples mean offerings and sacrifices, which for us mean we may be able to buy food tonight." The younger boy snorted. "When my mother and father return, they will feed me." "Your parents are never coming back," Joel snapped. Desicrus could see a glint sparkle in the older boy's eyes, where Jonah's eyes welled up with bulbous teardrops. Joel sighed with exasperation, then spoke. "Do you really want to be known as the boy who quit just when the treasure was within your grasp?" Jonah inhaled deeply, then let out a trembling yawn. "All right, let us find some treasure. I do not want to go to bed hungry again." He took a dozen steps towards a pile of marble rubble. Joel moved up behind him. Something in the youth's manner compelled the demon prince to watch Joel with more scrutiny. Desicrus drew close to Joel's neck and inhaled through his nose. An odor tainted the blood that coursed Joel's veins, a smell that intoxicated Desicrus with the precursor of murder. Much later, Joel emerged from the cavern holding a small bronze statue. It had the torso of a man and the lower body of a fish, Desicrus's predecessor, Dagon. "Look what I found." Once the sunlight hit the metal, he noticed something on the figure and put it under his tunic and rubbed the fabric over it. "What is it?" Miriam asked. "It's an old statue," Joel answered in a tone laced with sarcasm. "Let's go to the market and ask Ficus about it. Perhaps he'll give me some coin for this." Miriam looked back at the cave, and for a moment, Desicrus wanted to manifest himself to the girl, but he knew what awaited her, and so he was content with observation. "Where is Jonah?" she asked. Her voice was an octave higher than before. Joel looked at the ground, then responded, "He said he wanted to look around some more. I'm sure he will turn up. Let's go back to the market and get some coins for this statue. That way, when Jonah joins us, we will have some food waiting for him." The principality of Ashdod kept his eyes on the pair of children as they walked away. Suddenly, a small sensation began to tickle his throat. It branched outward until a deep, dry crackle of heinous laughter belched through his viscous teeth. He glanced back to where Joel had been. Under a few large rocks, there came drops of blood trickling to the ground. "My dear Ashdod, welcome another of your fatherless children back into your bosom. Soon, Joel will spurn your arms and seek to spill more blood on your streets. May your lips accept his blood sacrifice. Joel, child of Adam, may your heart blacken as you mature into manhood. You will hear my voice and heed my command every time I call you." Michael, the archangel of Israel, could sense significant shifts in the spiritual aura of the Holy Land as he surveyed the land of promise. Several patches of bleak darkness still covered large swaths of acreage. But with the spread of the gospel, the perpetual black no longer held total domination over Israel. Shards of light were breaking through, which gave the angel hope for Israel. A voice of pure, liquid gold called Michael from outside his tent entrance. "I have come to you, my brother, bearing good tidings. Saul of Tarsus is now among the Lord's believers." Michael felt his heart swell. "Gabriel, my dear brother, come in and take fellowship with me." The herald of heaven, Gabriel, stepped into Michael's tent with an expression of pure joy. The tides of hatred are being repelled. Soon, the good news will travel across the whole of the Roman Empire. Michael looked upon his brother and felt a renewed strength fill his heart. Still, doubts permeated his thoughts. Satan has lost his most lethal human weapon, the sword of Tarsus. Surely Lucifer will not relinquish him without a heavenly protest, and if that doesn't work, a full-scale war. Then the newly converted will need protection. Gabriel's youthful face held shades of concern. "Stay in prayerful worship. I must return to the Father." Then Gabriel disappeared. Once Michael was alone, he knelt and opened his heart to the God of all creation. Visions of war and images of fallen saints saturated his mind until the emotions of what he perceived filled his heart with dread. A still small voice came to his mind, and even as he felt the presence of someone just outside his tent, a recent memory became his focal point. 3 days ago, he had received a message from the Lord. "Go to where I show you and retrieve what you find there. What you find is meant for another, but until he is ready to receive it, you are commanded to guard it." The archangel's thoughts returned to the present. He pulled a long, golden cylinder out from under his golden breastplate, outlined with dazzling gems of all the colors of the spectrum. The shiny tube had a line of 7 precious gems along its length. The uppermost jewel, a blood-red garnet, shone as if illuminated from within. He touched the glowing jewel, and as if in response, a very thin rod appeared from inside the casing. Michael gently tugged on it and found it was attached to a scroll, which he pulled on until the entire text could be seen. The other end of the scroll remained attached to another rod held inside the ornate exterior. After unrolling the scroll and reading it, Michael sighed. "Themriel, you can enter now." The stout angel entered the tent. "Greeting, my captain." "Greetings," Michael responded. "Why have you left the fallen one?" Themriel furrowed his brow, and he appeared to be annoyed with the question. "Since I fought off 2 attacks on the wretch, my transmissions to you have gone unanswered. I want clarification before I continue to let the fallen one live." Themriel's tone did not seem disrespectful, even as his words appeared to be. "Are you questioning the orders God gave you?" "No, sir. I only endeavor to serve God." "When will he speak to me?" Themriel asked. Michael could sense hurt coming from the mighty angel. "You are a member of the Lord's army. It is not for you to question or disobey your orders. When our Father decides to speak with you, he will." The final sentence deflated Themriel. Michael continued, "Do not lose heart. God always answers us in the fullness of time when we need to know. He has not yet revealed to me the identity of the fallen one. only that we are not allowed to let the enemy capture him. The night stretched out like a curse, and even though the angel had enhanced his vision for a brief time, thankfulness for light filled his heart. Once the sun had risen, he found it easier to navigate, and could see he drew near to the two mountains his reluctant protector had pointed him to. His breathing labored with each breath. His steps were heavy and extremely painful. But he ran for fear's sake. The need to stay alive overcame his desire to stop running and address his wounded feet. Then the terrain became more treacherous. With jagged rocks and sharp plants tearing his soles to shreds, his progress slowed to a crawl. Each lunge caused his bare feet to slap heavily on the sharp rocks and tear into the soles of his feet. He had to stop, even if for a moment. After several deep breaths, his fatigue dissipated enough to give him the strength to continue. From his vantage point, he could see the opening between the two mountains that towered over him. If he could make it there, he may be able to cease running and wait for the angelic warrior to return. He inhaled deeply and slowly exhaled. If he was supposed to die on this day, he would put up a fight. This thought encouraged him, even if he did not know how to fight a flaming sword-wielding warrior. He would die on his terms. With all the vigor he had left in his weary limbs and aching feet, the man started running again. Suddenly, his right foot slipped upon a wet patch of stones and he slid, first forward, then backwards, finally crashing onto his left shoulder. His feet burned. He started to grab his throbbing shoulder, but instead reached down to massage his agonizing feet. He laid on the ground, moaning, only to discover the wetness was not a patch of moisture on the ground, but his own feet dripping blood from the numerous gashes on his heels. He felt around the rest of his body to see if there were any more wounds. His legs and arms were fine, except for his shoulder, which screamed as loudly as his feet. Black swells of unconsciousness filled his eyes, so he clenched his teeth together and continued to inspect his own body. For the first time, he noticed a white robe draped loosely over him, with a belt wrapped around his waist. This had to be why he had such a hard time in the water the night before. The belt seemed weighted down on both sides, so he reached his hands to his hips and found two leather sandals attached to both edges. Whatever reason he was put here, at least he was sent with more than the robes on his back. His hands trembled as he attempted to put the sandals on. Fatigue and hunger were much more apparent now that he was stationary, and the pain on his heels was excruciating. He attempted to put the first sandal on, but it had too much wetness from his blood to stay centered. Soon, the struggle to put the sandal on became too much. The weary fugitive leaned his back on the rocky ground, and after several anguished breaths, drifted off to sleep. Faces tore his canopy of unconsciousness, each one with barred teeth and bitter sneers. Words seemed to form on the lips of each interloper, but nothing came through to his understanding. All of them seemed to have a message for him, but their words were just out of reach. Looking down on the sleeping man, Themriel ground his jaw to a halt. How could he be forced to protect a fallen one? They were the most vile, corrupt, and unworthy creatures on this or any other plane of existence. They had beheld the glory of God, been partakers of the divine nature, and exalted his magnificence throughout the heavens. Why would any of them choose to fall? And why should he, the corrupted fiend that he was, be spared any measure of the judgment when all the minions of hell were cast out at the onset of their rebellion? Then the slightest hint of pity pierced the angry veil. Themriel saw the trembling figure and knew the fate awaiting him was the worst. His thoughts moved to restoring the woeful wretch's health, at least enough for the betrayer to continue. He departed to a perch far enough away to give himself some space, but close enough to protect his charge should more demons come to claim him. Much later, he flew back to where the traitor slept. "Wake up!" Themriel's voice shook the ground with a heavy boom. Rolling on the ground, the man appeared to be waking up. But when his face looked skyward, his eyes were tightly closed. His lips were moving, and each breath held faint utterances. The words became louder with each gasp, but he couldn't translate one syllable. "Wake up!" Themriel had no patience for this fool. The fool jolted awake, wobbly and disoriented. "Where am I?" "You are where I told you to go, between the two hills," Themriel responded. A befuddled look crossed the man's face, causing Themriel's impatience to return. The angel spoke through a clenched mouth. "You are on the western side of the land of promise, now called Judea. You are still alive and unclaimed by Satan." The man could only stare out into the evening air. A few minutes later, the tattered man sat up and gingerly put his scabbed feet on the ground. He started to put the sandals on over the caked blood, but winced and fell back. Through the dense, amnesia-clouded eyes, a minuscule spark of acknowledgement flickered. "Then I thank you for your efforts to protect me." A long, conflicted silence hung between them until the angel looked down at the man's torn feet. Something in the man stiffened, as if a stubborn resolve gave him renewed strength. He fastened the sandals on the leather belt around his waist. "Wouldn't it be better to wear the sandals?" Themriel asked. The man didn't return Themriel's gaze. After a few more moments of silence, finally answered, "My feet hurt more when I put sandals on. Where to now?" Themriel could have stretched out his hand and gave his charge a healing touch, but chose to allow him to endure the pain. He wouldn't know the difference, the angel thought. We must make haste to the next town. "Why?" Themriel paused. His teeth were barred to restrain the words he desired to say to this defiler. "Until I know what to do with you, the best plan is to keep moving. You will be easier to hide inland among other people."